everyone romanticizes travel as if it's the cure-all for all things that are wrong. And it's almost the opposite. Travel unwinds everything that is essentially wrong in you. You know, when you go outside and you undo all of your routines that you used to, those things that hold you together, you start to see who you really are. You know, for those people who have ambitions of travel, it's one of those things where, you know, it's great until it's not great. And then when it's not great, you have to go ahead and either crawl back to where you came from and sort of just forget about what happened, medicate, or take care of it.
That is Will Sueiro, today's guest, along with his wife, Jessica, who you'll hear today. They are the duo that forms WorldTowning. They've been traveling full-time for 10 years. Today, it's an opportunity to reflect, and I thought this was a great way to bookend Mental Health Awareness Month, because full-time travel isn't really travel anymore, is it? You're just living your life on the road. You can call it a nomadic life. You can call it, a slow travel, whatever you want to call it. But when you spend years on the road, you're just living life. And we all have challenges along the way in life. And mental health is an important aspect of full-time travel. So we dig into that today. And along with that, plenty of other travel goodies. We talk about those modes of travel that you choose, how they can change and evolve over time, and might give you some food for thought around how to choose the mode of travel that aligns with your goals and preferences, trying to find that magical balance between work and full-time travel, and an incredible tradition that they started. I think this is a great way to maybe kick off your next adventure, your own travels. You'll hear about that today and much more in this episode right now. So buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show, my friend. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. And one huge part of filling your life with travel, or traveling full-time, which we're going to talk about today, is figuring out when to take the leap. I'm bringing this up because if you're curious, if you're in that spot, or you may be in the future, I'm going to share a listener voicemail, somebody from this community, Tia. Hey, Tia, if you're listening. She talks about her struggle with trying to figure out when to take the leap. So if you stick around after the interview, I'll share a few ideas if you are torn on when to take your first or next global adventure. Now, today's chat, really quickly, WorldTowning.com is the website for Will and Jessica, and they've had this full-time travel lifestyle for a decade plus. They have a podcast now, the Why Matters podcast. We'll link up to that. Of course, their YouTube station as well. Currently walking the Appalachian Trail, actually, if you're curious about that. They're documenting that. But today in this show, we are talking about their experiences full-time traveling for so long. And it's interesting because I met them in person and we got to chat and record a podcast when they were 5 years in, and now getting to sit down with them again, virtually this time, and have this conversation. It was just really cool to hear how travel can transform, but also some of the struggles that go along with that. And this is the stuff that you can't get on Instagram or social media. You get the glossy pictures, but here we dig into the reality of the day-to-day full-time travel lifestyle, how that can impact you, what it's been like for them. And I think some of the things they've been through, we always have things to learn from other people's experiences, right? And talking about self-care and mental health as we finish out Mental Health Awareness Month here on the pod. It's important for everybody listening. So I think there is a lot in this conversation that can benefit all listeners, whether you're planning on traveling full-time or not. And of course, we mix in plenty of fun travel stuff. They share some of the destinations that are near and dear to their hearts. They have done the sailboat around the world thing. They've done the RV around the world. They've done the backpacking. They got a lot to share here and plenty going on for everybody. So hope you enjoy it. And towards the end, you're going to hear this incredible tradition they have and that we're all encouraging you to steal today. So you got something to steal. Worth stealing, I should say here. Please enjoy this chat, and I'll see you on the other side, my friend. Cheers.
Départ à destination de New York, New York. Vol l'avion 001, embarquement pôle 1, porte 18.
Will and Jessica Sueiro, welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friends. Welcome back, I should say, after 5 long years.
Has it been 5 years?
It's been so
Well,
long,
almost.
honestly. And we were worried that we'd change. Like we've been watching you on social media, so we know that you look exactly the same. But we're like, okay, we got to make sure we look okay. It's been a while.
It's been a hard 5 years too, Will. So in that sense, I'm sure we've aged a bit, but hopefully we've aged in all the good ways, like mentally, right?
You guys look wonderful. Actually, it's funny. I was thinking the opposite because when I checked out as I was researching for this conversation, I listened back to some of our other conversation, which we can link to in the show notes here. And then also you guys made a vlog about, because you guys came to my apartment at the time and you were in Norway. So we got to do it in person and hang out and have dinner together and everything was awesome. And anyway, I saw myself walking around and I was like, wow, I look younger and thinner and my kids are really small.
Right? It's weird how these things happen. It's like you'll go a decade and you won't change how you look at all. And then all of a sudden, well, you have little kids and then they grow older and you grow older and you're like, wow, it's only been a year, but it looks like it's been 10. Wait till they become teenagers. And all this now I look back to those younger years and think, oh boy, the questions were so easy. Like my toe hurts or I had a bad dream. Now it's like big stuff.
Well, we had our son Largo with us, and that happened to be his best experience in all of Norway because he was like, "This is the first time I've ever been on a podcast."
Right. That's right.
That's awesome.
He was on.
Yeah. Yeah, we dragged him on.
That's so cute.
It's been really cool to see what you guys have been. I mean, I know a lot's happened since we last talked, and if people want to get the full backstory from then till like halfway through, because you guys are coming up now on your 10-year anniversary of full-time travel, so this is really timely in a way because people can listen to that first episode, get the halfway point, and now we can see the second half. And I mean, at that point, can you even call it full-time travel anymore? You do, but it's life, right? Like your life is just on the road. I guess that's full-time travel, but this is your life.
You're right. It's a lifestyle choice, but that's kind of not a word that a lot of people are used to hearing. Although I feel like people hear it now since COVID, because a lot of people were inspired to change their life once they worked remotely and said, oh, this is pretty cool. I can do it. But yeah, we still do call it full-time travel, but I don't.
We just call it our life now.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
There's the novelty has kind of worn off, and now it's just a matter of just, okay, what are we doing tomorrow?
Right. This is just how our life goes. And it's interesting, Jason, because if it was 5 years ago, so that was at kind of the halfway mark. And I remember after year one, we were like, oh, I mean, I guess we were a bit cocky in a way, but we're like, oh, we got this. We know how to do this full-time travel thing. And then at like the 3-year mark, we're like, oh, wow, we really didn't have it at the year mark. And then at the 5-year mark, we're like, oh, you know what? We really don't have it at all. And now at the 10-year mark, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're still learning. Like, I feel like our confidence level has gone like at first we were just like, we're doing this, damn it. We're so good at this. And now we're like, every day we're like, oh, wow, we need to improve this and we need to improve that. Like the longer we're out here, the more we realize how much we need to learn just about life in general, right?
Yeah. Talk about the WorldTowning idea and movement. Just kind of wondering what that means for you guys right now in real time, like how long you're set up in a place, how much you're moving around. What's sort of the lifestyle look like right now?
It changes on a day-to-day basis. That's the interesting thing. When we first started out, the WorldTowning philosophy that we were living by was deeply immersing ourselves into a community and a culture and making friends of people that live there and were born in the country and adopting some of the traditions and learning about the history because we were slower traveling. Now that we still try to do that, but we do it on such a smaller base now because we're moving so much faster and things have changed so differently. We started out by slow traveling in countries for 9 to 12 months and having a home base, to then RVing around Europe for 3 years, which was moving quite fast and we couldn't have that deeper cultural immersion and make local friends. And then we went and spent 5 months in Japan through COVID. And then we bought a sailboat. So there was less immersing into a community there and more immersion into our family and learning how to sail and survive and not die on a sailboat. And now we're taking a boat break And we've been kind of roaming around Asia. And now we've been in Paris for 4 months. And then next month, we're going to hike the AT Trail in the United States. So it's a constant kind of ebb and flow, and it's continually changing. Like the basic premise is still the same, that we want to learn about cultures and immerse in them as deeply as we can for the time that we're there. And that has been consistent throughout the 10 years of travel. But the amount we're able to do that varies depending on where we are and the style of travel we're doing.
Yeah. It sounds like you've been ebbing and flowing with kind of where it's supposed to go next. I guess all you could do. Well, you mentioned the novelty wearing off. That kind of caught my ear because, yeah, that's not the same as not appreciating it anymore, I don't think. But sometimes those two can go hand in hand. And I think that's sometimes when the novelty wears off on travel, that's when a lot of people pack it up and find a base and settle down somewhere, to use those words. The S word on this podcast, settle down. It might scare people. Mentioning that the novelty was wearing off. I mean, how does that sit with you guys? Was there any discussion on changing it up completely and getting off the road?
When we look at our lives, we no longer are telling ourselves that this is something new that we have to become accustomed to. This has just become our lives. Now, there are moments where we clearly pinch ourselves and we say, look at what we're getting to do. However, every life has its own set of routines, and now our life has become more of a routine of just traveling, setting up in a new place, getting used to it, getting SIM cards, and seeing what life is. And it's no longer a sense of just, well, look what we left behind, look where we're at now. Now it's just look where we are now. And so when I say the novelty is worn off, I think it's just a matter of that I've almost forgotten what our life was like once upon a time. So it's hard. It's hard to go ahead and look at life and say, "Oh my gosh, this is the best decision we ever made." Although we do say that, but it's not a constant, always reminder of gratitude of what we've done because it's so normal for us now.
Yeah, you're far removed from the decision point of leaving the sort of conventional lifestyle for this unconventional full-time travel life. It's 10 years ago now. Right. So it's
right. And it's like, I mean, you meet people that have been traveling for a year and they're just on, and we were those people, and I'm definitely not knocking those people, but it's a different, like they've discovered this promised land that no one else knows about. And we do still feel very much like that, but I guess we don't feel the need to kind of shout it from the rooftops and feel that that we're better than someone else who didn't choose this lifestyle, which I think we did feel that way, to be honest, in the first year or two. Like, I don't want to say I feel like we were maybe a little cocky, like I said before,
It's interesting because when you looked at us in the very beginning and someone would say, "Where are you from?" we would go into a whole half-hour discussion with them, and they just wanted to hear a city. And we'd say, "Look, we left. We went to Costa Rica. We went to Ecuador. It's so great. Look at our lives." And now,
it's true. We were bragging,
and now we're just like, "Yeah, we're just here." And someone will come next to us and they'll say, "Well, we've been traveling around Europe for the last 3 weeks, and oh my gosh, Europe is amazing. I've learned so much." And we're like, "Yeah, it's pretty cool." And so, we've become...
we never like, "Oh, we're bigger and better. We've been doing it for 10 years.
We become a lot more humble, I would say, when it comes to it.
For sure. And you mentioned that, the S word, settle. Like I mean, I'm not going to speak for both of us, but I know how Will feels about this as well. The longer we've been out here, the thought of ever having to go back to our stationary life or our previous life really feels just awful. And like I would need like some serious... I definitely think I would slip into a bit of a depression. And we kind of got a taste of it in the sense when COVID came around, we talked about, should we go back? It'd be a good financial decision if we go back for this COVID thing that's going to last, 6 months. Thank goodness we didn't, because it lasted much longer, obviously. And the thought of how we would be from a mental standpoint going back, we talked about it for 10 minutes and we were just like, we're just going to have to muscle through this from a financial standpoint because we have a travel-based business. Our income just went, overnight. We tightened the buckle and we lived off our savings and we didn't go back. And I am so, so grateful we didn't go back, because we did know a lot of other travelers who went back and they just didn't go back out. And sometimes that happens when you have teenagers or you're at a different point in your life or something at where home was happens. And then you don't get back out there, even though everyone says they're going to get back out there. So the thought of just going back to that other life just feels daunting, and it would take a very extreme situation for us to go back. And when I say an extreme situation, I say, well, our eldest is already in college in the United States, so she's kind of out of the equation. But if our 16-year-old said, I am just not enjoying this anymore, and I want to go back, and I want to go back to the United States, we would go willingly, and I would go. I don't think it would be as hard on me personally, because I would know it was be in the best interest of him and what he wanted. And that's always been the way that we've operated. Like, we never thought we'd be out here as long as we have been, because we thought one of the kids would want to go back, and we would honor that and go back. So like a situation of him wanting to go back, or maybe a family member really needed us. But other than that, I don't ever want to go back. Like, I really, really enjoy our life, and it feels like this is my authentic path in life. And I can't imagine living another way.
I always appreciated that about you guys. I felt like you always had a great relationship with your kids in that way, that it was, definitely like a joint decision to do this, and it could be stopped at any time if they wanted it to. And I was going to ask about that, because now the dynamic has shifted. You guys have been on the road so long that Avalon grew up and went to college. Like that's I went from being a kid to now going to college, and now it's the three of you. And for the longest time, it was the four of you. And of course, they're aging, and teenage years is different than when you're traveling when they're younger. So can you talk about that change right now in your life? What does it look like with just the three of you? And just in general, watching your kids grow up in this lifestyle. I'm just curious what that experience has been like for you as parents.
Yeah, so it's interesting because when we started this, day one, year one, the kids were age 6 and age 9. And we thought to ourselves, well, let's see how this whole thing works. Like when we started, we were introducing ourselves to homeschooling. We'd never done that before. We were introducing ourselves to like a whole new way of living, like working from home, the whole 9 yards. And the whole question of how the kids were going to do was first and foremost on our mind, and most of all with the education. So I like to say that we stand now as very sort of proud of our kids for doing what they're doing, because they have taken on this whole mentality that we're doing this life and we're seeing the world, but they're not just slacking off. Like, they're actually taking the responsibility for their own education like there's no tomorrow. And we don't take credit for what they've done. They've done it all on their own. And the fact that Avalon is now in the States, back in university, and at a pretty good school, we're pretty. I like to say that the recipe has worked more than anything else, and we judge ourselves
every time I see she's giving some big speech or doing some crazy cool thing. I'm like, rock on, Avalon.
And the funny thing is, this was just a wild science experiment. I mean, we had no idea how this was going to work. There were not people sharing their lives on social media. There were a couple people blogging here and there. And to be frank, I think most of them were just showing the rainbows and unicorns aspect of this lifestyle back then. So we had no idea if this was going to work for our kids. Were we setting them up? Because the world was telling us we were setting them up for failure, that they needed to be in school like everyone else, and they needed to be on these sports teams, and they needed to have friends that were their age and their gender and their skin color. And so we just totally went and ran the opposite direction of that. And although we could very quickly see our kids were thriving individually as best friends, and we were thriving as a family, you still can't help but go, but what if the world is telling us we're screwing this all up, that we're being terrible, selfish parents? And so to see it all kind of come full circle and have launched a child, like Will said, she's at a very good university, but that was never our goal ever for our kids. The goal was that they had a love of learning, and that they worked hard for what they wanted in life, and that they could do anything they put their mind to. And this was her goal. And she went after it starting in her junior year in high school, where she tested really well and was like, oh, I can probably get into this top tier school. I'm going to go for it. And so she took the ball and she ran with it. And I think that all of her success it's hers. It's not ours, but the lifestyle that we put out there for her to have access to the world and learn about the world has really contributed a lot to her level of happiness and her level of feeling a responsibility for the greater good of the world, and her relationships that she has with people. Like, it all it all contributed to where she is today and the person she is today. And when we started this, we just didn't know. Jason, we had no idea if it was going to work or not. So it feels really nice seeing that the kids are well adjusted, that they have a really beautiful relationship between the two of them. And we have a great relationship as a family. Clearly, we really, really miss her. It was a big change for all of us, particularly Largo, because they're best friends. When she went off to university, it changed the whole dynamic of the family. And it took us a good 6 months to really adjust and find our new normal, but we're still super tight. We talk to her all the time. We message, family chats, and we meet up around the world on her vacations and stuff. And it's really been amazing. I mean, I think I answered your question. I don't know, but it being on the other end of this, I'm sure there are people that are listening that are probably thinking the same thing, like what happened with the kids. And I can say that there's obviously been some bumps along the road, parenting, relationships, marriage, family dynamic. There's all kinds of bumps along the road. We've just been doing it with an ever-changing backdrop, and it really worked out, for the family bond and our kids' desire to do good in the world, and their relationship with each other has really just been unbelievably amazing and far surpasses what I ever thought we would get out of this choice of lifestyle.
Congratulations.
Mic drop. We're done.
Mic drop, we're done.
Actually, we still have one kid left, but yeah, almost.
Yeah, and he's studying to be a pilot, right? It's just the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, I guess, with the travel.
Yeah, right. I mean, you have to look at it and think, he's been growing up in airports and did this, and from a very young age, he loved airports. So obviously he found his passion through travel. And I mean, that, that's always what we wanted with them to be able to do work that they loved. Right. And how to find that is kind of a wild goose chase. So it really worked out well for him.
I guess I want to hear some practical advice around that, because when I think about my kids now are 7 and 5. So not too far from the ages a little far, but I would have a hard time getting my head around finding the balance and the homeschooling thing. And I understand like every personality is different, right? So if certain kids out there aren't as self-motivated, say as your kids were, to take the ball and run with it, as you said, or, the requirement of kind of a lot of the screen time that you would have to have in order to take classes and learn. And I imagine there's a lot of computer work, just like being a digital nomad, running an online business or whatever, which is different than like sending my daughter here to school. And I'm just curious how you guys found the balance to make it work, where they got the benefits of, seeing the world and the places you were in and all that stuff, but also you were still able to get them to do the things that they needed to do to further their education. That seems so hard. I don't know. And that's just because I haven't done it, but you guys have, which is why I'm asking you.
Jason, you're spot on. It's so hard.
We call it a tale of two halves more than anything else in our life, because we lived a life as if the caliber of the university that she was going to go to was unimportant, and it always was unimportant. However, and with that being said, we did life like we wanted to. We saw things, we explored, we took days off. We didn't worry about if assignments weren't done, because we thought that they were still learning more than they should have learned.
We didn't wait.
Otherwise,
we didn't do any standardized tests from the second we left the U.S.
We were so 100% opposed to standardized tests until she took a standardized test.
Until she wanted to take a standardized test. And we were like, I don't know. It's not a gauge of how you're going to turn out in life, how happy you are, how smart you are. We just walked away from that. And we never, ever did them along the way to see if they were up to par with their peers or anything like that. And then when she decided she wanted to do one, that sent a ball in motion, which if she was here with us today she would tell you that her junior and senior year were the worst 2 years of her education. She will also tell you she's glad she did what she did, because she met the goal that she wanted in the university level that she wanted. But she said it was soul-sucking work, learning and studying to the AP exams and taking all the standardized tests. And she wrote, I think it was 64 essays for college applications. So, I don't want to present it like it's been an easy path and that this has been really smooth and wonderful and anyone can do it. And we did it so seamlessly. It's been incredibly hard balancing once they get on the computer and they're doing their homeschooling on the computer, balancing it to make sure that they're not getting too much tech is so difficult in a homeschooling scenario versus a traditional school, because they have gym and they have recess. And if they're not super disciplined, it's very easy for them to go down a rabbit hole and you not even notice because you're working on some social media thing and they've watched a movie or whatever the case may be. So, and our family is not, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. We're not special. Like it's not like we didn't have any of these same issues going through it. And actually right now we feel that he's in a very intense program. He's in a dual enrollment high school program. And for those of you who don't know what this is, because I don't think it might be only a US thing, you can take college classes while in high school and you can put it towards the credits will transfer into a university you go to. And so he will graduate high school with an AS degree. But these classes are intense. And Will and I kind of looked at each other and we said, I guess it was probably in the end of November, he is spending a lot of time on the computer, reading, regurgitating, taking exams. And he's a 16-year-old kid or teen. And we felt that the reason we started this kind of travel lifestyle, that he wasn't getting enough of it anymore. There wasn't enough outside time engaging with other cultures and learning and cooking classes and adventures. And that was actually the catalyst. He's ahead of where he needs to be academically for his age. And that was a catalyst for us to say, you know what, it's time for another big adventure. And that was the catalyst for us deciding to hike the Appalachia Trail with him. So it's interesting that you asked that question, because I feel like we're right in the midst. You couldn't ask that question at a better time, because we were struggling as well, feeling like a 16-year-old should not be in front of the computer this much. And so it is a constant, we constantly have to be watching and navigating, especially since we have two very motivated kids. They will just sit there and work and work and work and work. And life is not all about sitting in front of the computer and working and memorizing and regurgitating. So we also outsource, asking about how homeschooling. So if we outsource a lot, so we're not teaching the classes because we work as well. And we feel that it's important for them to engage with other humans as teachers and mentors. And so they get a different perspective, because if they decide to go to university, which Avalon's already there and Lago is saying he wants to go to aviation university, they're going to have to deal with other people, right? That's just the way life is. So, and it also takes a lot of pressure off us. Like when he's in Spanish and French class, Will and I are kind of like, okay, he's having engagement with someone else, and we maybe will go have a meeting, because now that we're down to one child at home, one teen at home, it kind of has raised the bar for us from a parenting standpoint, to make sure he's getting enough social, make sure we're engaging with him enough, because before it would be him and his sister as a team, like we're going to the store together, we're going to go watch a movie. So our level of responsibility in all areas has gone up, even though he's incredibly self-sufficient.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
I hope I did I scare you, Jason?
No. That just paints a good picture. I mean, that was a good practical example too of kind of how you guys are using, you're living this lifestyle where you have flexibility to go and do things. And that's a good example of like, okay, this seems out of balance. Now we're going to take travel or some travel experience like hiking the Appalachian Trail, and we're going to kind of see where we're at now and take this, and we're going to use that to kind of go on to the next thing or the next version of whatever. I mean, I think it's a good example actually of how you would use the travel lifestyle to kind of make adjustments as you go as a family. Can we talk about mental health? I know there's been some stuff going on. Can we? Well, you mentioned the rainbows and unicorns thing earlier. Of course, I think, a lot of content creators now and things you see on the internet or whatever you want to call it. It's thankfully it's changed a lot. People have gotten past a lot of that, and you've seen those like Instagram versus reality posts, like somebody swimming in a beautiful blue thing, and then they do the reality and there's like 1,000 people waiting to do the same thing. Stuff like that. But another reality of living your life on the road is just like the reality of living in one place, which is mental health, which anybody can struggle with anywhere. Just because you go out on the road and live this amazing lifestyle that you love doesn't mean that there aren't going to be challenges. And I'm curious to talk to you guys about this, because I know there have been recently, and you guys seem willing to share. So I hope it's okay that I'm bringing it up. And I think it's important because it's within the context of living and traveling full time, which to me is different, right? I mean, it's a different way. And so you guys are only speaking from your own personal experience, of course, but I wanted to hear a bit more about self-care, I guess we would say, to the point where you feel balanced and you're able to do the things that you want to do and live the way you want to live and feel good about it. And it sounds like there were some struggles recently. So I don't know where to start, but I guess I turn it over to you guys if you're willing to share and we can get into it.
Like you said, everyone romanticizes travel as if it's the cure-all for all things that are wrong. And it's almost the opposite. Travel unwinds everything that is essentially wrong in you. You know, when you go outside and you undo all of your routines that you used to, those things that hold you together, you start to see who you really are and what you really believe in and how you react to things when you don't have sort of the safety of what the answer is going to be before it even happens. So for us, as we've been going around this world, we've been very adept into changing our routine quite a bit, but that doesn't mean it doesn't affect us. For us, the whole concept of, that travel does, you have to solve your problems before you start this full-time travel life, or else your problems come back to bite you. And
they come back stronger.
Right. and every single time you make a change, and every single time you go ahead and you make an adjustment to your life, that onion that you have just peels more and more and more and more and more, and your core becomes more exposed. And there's little out there to sort of that you can sit back and just say, I'm going to rest here because this is my safe space. There are no safe spaces when you're traveling full time. And for us, as we've gone along, we've become more of our wounds being more opened. Things that happened in our childhood that were childhood trauma that came back and revealed itself even more than we ever expected it to come out. And after a while, you just realize that if you don't take care of it, it's gonna eat you up like there's no tomorrow. I think for those people who have ambitions of travel, it's one of those things where it's great until it's not great, and then when it's not great, you have to go ahead and either crawl back to where you came from and sort of just forget about what happened, medicate, or take care of it. And in our case, we don't want to go back to where we came from. We're not much into medicating ourselves. And so, we looked at each other and we said that, it's time to sort of take care of who we really are, because there's this very little in this life that we love more than what we're doing, and we don't want to see anything bad happen to it. And so, sort of long story short,
well, can I say something for a second? First of all, I think everyone should be in some sort of a therapy. There's all kinds of, there's EMDR, there's talk therapy, there's cognitive stuff, there's week-long retreats. I feel like just in general, like if you're as young as you can get in it, awesome. If you're in your 20s, figure yourself out. If you're newly in a relationship or partnership that you want to last a long time, get in couples therapy, all of it, even if you think that your relationship is perfect. And if you're going to go travel, get in that couples therapy way before you start, or individual therapy, because like Will said, everything's going to be heightened. And for us, the more extreme the adventure we did, the more heightened and profound any type of trauma or things that we were dealing with from our past, they would surface. And we were finding we weren't having the ability the things that we needed to be able to deal with it, because we didn't have the tools, because we hadn't been, none of us are taught these tools. This stuff isn't taught in schools. It may be starting to be taught now, but it was not taught when we were in school. We're in our early 50s, and it wasn't talked about in families. And so we kind of had to discover all of this on our own. And I don't want to make it sound like we were like super extreme. It's not like we were going to stop traveling. We weren't going to get a divorce or anything like that. But we both realized that we were not being the best versions of ourselves, and we were not being the role models that we wanted our children to see. And we wanted them to see us kind of taking care of all of our from our pasts that we brought to the relationship and to the family. So I just wanted to kind of cut in there for a second and say, I just really believe in any type of therapy that you can get into. And if you're listening to this saying, oh no, I'm fine, I'm absolutely fine, then you definitely need to call a therapist today, because none of us are perfectly fine. And if you're saying you're fine, then there's something really buried there that you haven't discovered that will surface. And my gosh, isn't it better to deal with this stuff in your 20s and 30s than when you're in your 50s? And I'm saying that because I am 51 and I dealt with a lot of stuff in the last couple of years, and it's been a lot harder the older I am. So sorry, I didn't mean to derail. Well, I just wanted to kind of put that in and say, everyone should do therapy. So you were saying? Do you remember what you were saying?
Yeah. So as Jessica was saying, basically, we for now, I guess, within about 4 years of full-time travel, we got ourselves to the point where I started doing therapy, because I knew that there were things that I just needed to address. And it works out really great to go ahead and talk things out. Sometimes your partner is your best friend. Sometimes your partner is the person you're trying to sort of convince to do something that you don't want to do. And it's not always 100% a partnership. It's more of a team that you need to sort of get through the finish line. And for us, there were times where just, we didn't see eye to eye and everything. And a therapist was just exactly what we needed to go ahead and sort of bridge that gap.
And also, I'm a take on other people's pain and feelings. And I found that with Will, I was kind of taking on everything he was feeling because he was talking with me about it. And I said, I don't think this is healthy for either one of us. Like, you need to speak to someone else. I'm not a trained professional. I care about you, but this is not only not helping you, but it's not helping me, because I'm kind of going down the rabbit hole with you. And there came a point where I had to say, like, I can't be part of your trauma. You need someone else to help you.
And going from there, as time went on and sort of things become a little more intense. Once we jumped on the boat, our life became a lot more intense. If anyone tells you living on the boat is sunsets and sundowners, they're only telling you like 5% of the story.
Well, I think if you're retired and you're not raising children and schooling and working full time, it is a lot easier. So I do think there's kind of that little asterisk there, right?
But for us, it was schooling full time. It was hanging out, being on the boat, doing boat repairs, moving fast,
working full time, learning to sail.
Right. And not everyone takes to sailing very well on our boat. Jessica gets a little nauseous every now and then.
I get a little seasick.
And so there was just a lot of things to deal with. And I think that became to the point where we hit our I'm going to say our lowest point, but the peak of where we realized that we still had more self-care to take care of.
Yeah.
And so after a while, we just finished crossing the Atlantic and we went over to Panama, and we were just about to cross the Panama Canal, and we paused for a minute and we said, okay,
yeah,
it's time to sort of take things into another level. And so I went to...
Wait, before you talk about that, can I share like how it was manifesting in us so that people can kind of get an idea, because we're talking about it kind of on high level?
Go for it.
Okay, so what was happening was we were not being the family we wanted to be. Will was, which he's never done this before, but he was doing a lot of micromanaging, second guessing. When Avalon would come back and visit, and Largo was with us all the time. So he was questioning the kids and their decisions, and it wasn't really healthy for them, because I don't want them to question themselves. And it was something that was going on with him internal. And for me, I've never struggled with anxiety, but I do have a bit of anxiety on the boat. I'm a nervous sailor and I do get seasick, but it felt like it was intensified for me. I felt like a loss of control because I couldn't control the boat. And I really needed to find a way to dig deeper of where all this was coming from. So I think it's just important to give, the listeners here kind of an idea of how things were. It's a lot deeper than that, but that's kind of the basic gist of how it was manifesting. And we didn't like how we were parenting, how we were behaving as a couple, and the role models we were presenting for our kids, because they could, we're living in a small space, we're living in an intense space, and we were unraveling a lot in front of them, and we were arguing more, and micromanaging, and Will and I don't really, we don't look at other people's lives and judge them, but we felt like we were doing that a bit. And we were, I don't want to say gossiping because we're not gossipers, but there was a bit of anger in us. Like, oh, look, that's not even, they're faking that. Like we were just becoming the people we didn't want to become. And we knew it wasn't our true self, but it was there, and we knew we needed to take care of it because, Will and I will eventually figure everything out, but the kids are only with us a short time, and they're seeing this, and this can become part of their normal or how they operate in relationships or with other people. So
Yeah. So here we are in Panama. We're getting close to crossing the Panama Canal, and we just look at each other and we say that we need to do something a little bit more, and we go to my therapist and we say, okay, well, what can be done? And he came up with like the best idea that was ever presented to us that we could have thought of, and thank goodness we have a therapist because only he would have known this. But now we're trying to share this with other people.
And our therapist, just so everyone, because people are like, how do you have a therapist in travel? So we had one therapist that we've had for a very long time who's based in Paris. And then Will did when we were living in France, he did some initial in-person meetings with him. And then he agreed to do Zoom therapy. And we've also used some BetterHelp as well. So, but he's our main therapist. And so it's worked out really well. So if you're listening to this going, well, I'm traveling, I don't know how I'm going to get a therapist, I'm in all these different time zones, keep looking, you'll find one. There are people, especially since COVID, there are therapists doing this kind of all over the place.
Yep. And so he turned us on to this one place in the UK. It's actually kind of global, but they have it. They have one stationed in London. It's called the Hoffman Process, and it is a week-long session which teaches you to sort of, without sounding too cliche,
right? And I don't want to sound like a cult either.
but it teaches you to sort of strip down to what you should have been before all like the negative patterns were given to you, like the stuff that you learned from society, things you learned from your parents, judge, guilt, shame, everything that makes you not the true person that you should be, not appreciating yourselves. And after the week, you walk out saying, my goodness, who on earth was this person beforehand who allowed all this just negative stimuli to go ahead and help you become or hurt you into the person that sort of didn't enjoy life the way you should have.
And it sounds so simple, like, oh, I could do that. But until you're there, kind of breaking everything down, there's no tech. So for 6 days, you have to give your phone, your computer. It's an honor system, so I guess you could sneak one in your room, but you only have engagement with the facilitators, the people who are cooking your meals. You're outside of London on some estate, and you have your own room, and you don't have any contact with the outside world. It's the first time I'd ever gone a week without speaking with Will and the kids. And so you're really just there. And at night, it's amazing because at night you sit in your bed and you're like, okay, what am I going to do? Especially Will and I, since we're workaholics, we're like, oh, I have plenty of time to do this and that, but you have no computer, you have nothing. So you're sitting there with your thoughts, processing everything you've learned through the day. What are the patterns, like Will said, I took on that weren't really authentically me, that I took on from a parent, from society? And, I don't want to overtalk it, but for Will went, and
it was amazing. It totally, you walk away going, I'm not going to allow myself to go ahead and become this person who, as much as as much as you look at yourself and say, look at this life that I have, it's amazing. I'm traveling the world and I'm pinch me, but inside you're still kind of just like festering a little bit. And so this allowed you to say, why am I festering? And is it even worth it? And
teaches you how to silence negative voices, all kinds of really interesting stuff.
Yeah. And I think it has, like Jessica said, without sounding cultish, this thing has truly changed my life. And I like to feel that, that this is something that I wish I can gift to everyone that I know.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing.
So Will came back. And, I'm sure you've done these things before, all these kind of things that are out there, new agey, something online, a seminar, some hippy dippy thing. And everyone comes back and they're changed in the first couple of days or couple hours. And, I was such a skeptic when he came back. I was like, he would say things and I go, don't Hoffman me. Oh, like I was just so cranky about it. Just like, oh, you've joined this cult thing. And I look at now and I'm so disgusted by my behavior because I ultimately ended up going. And when I came back, I really needed the support of someone who knew what I'd been through. And he was really there for me. And I thought, God, I was just so like, I'm not messed up. I don't need that. Don't use those terms on me. And I just was just an awful version of myself. And I had he went in, I don't know, February or something. And September of that same year, I had just a really bad month. And I went to Will and I said, I need to go. I had seen the change in him, and I'm like, I really feel like I need to go. And I really felt like he went to this other space that I didn't go to. And our relationship, it was the first time I'd ever felt in, I don't know, 25, 26 years we've been together, that our relationship may not survive if I don't grow in the way that he's grown. And I really wanted to grow, and I wanted to be happier with myself. And I had a really awful negative inner voice of things not being good enough, and I'm not being good enough, and I'm a perfectionist, and just all these awful things that are a lot of people look at as really good because I'm a workaholic and it gets me the life I have. But internally it's really, it's eating me alive. And so I said to Will, I want to go. And we looked at our schedule, and he said, you have to go next month or not for a year, like with our group trips that we host and everything that was going on in our life. And I said, oh my gosh, well, I can't bring this all together and go in a month. And he goes, we're going to figure it out. And so we figured it out. And a month later I went, and I came back, and it really had a huge, huge impact on us as individually, as a couple, as parents. And I don't want to make it sound like it was like this miracle drug. By the way, there were no drugs involved, no shock therapy, none of that stuff. It was not a nudist colony or anything. But it's a constant, right? It's a constant daily thing for us. We have homework, and every day we do, a little bit of work. We check ourselves. And it's not hard work. And sometimes we waver. Like I just fell into a hole of not doing it for 2 weeks while we were running a group trip in India. And I kind of had to center myself back and, do the work and whatnot. So I guess long story short is it really worked for us. And I don't think we had found the talk therapy it worked really well for many years, but it wasn't the secret sauce that we needed for the next stage of development that we wanted to do on ourselves. And so 2023 was really our year for us for self-care, self-improvement, mental wellness, all of it, as well as physical wellness.
Yeah,
And
if you look at our budget, I guess budget versus actual for 2023, the self-care line was just the big variance because we had no idea it was coming. It is quite the investment, and so
and we didn't really have money saved for that, to be honest.
Right, but we knew it was necessary, and so we jumped in and we did it, and we're happy about it.
I think I don't know how anyone could last out here traveling and living this lifestyle for a decade without being in some sort of a mental wellness program, seminars, regular therapy, whatever. I mean, if you're doing it, awesome, great job. We couldn't. We needed to really dig deeper and become a better version of ourselves. And that was probably a long answer to your question, Jason.
No, thank you for sharing. I did some research on the Hoffman process when you guys forwarded some of the stuff you've been up to. I knew I was going to ask about this if you didn't bring it up. So I'm glad you did. And we can link up to that. Seems like a really interesting program. I mean, Will, you said you wish you could gift it to everybody. I mean, if you want to send me, man, I'll send you my itinerary. You could just shoot me over those plane tickets whenever you're ready. No.
Well, it's funny, Jason, because I said to Avalon, both kids, I said, when you guys graduate from college, we want to gift this to you. And I was speaking with one of the facilitators about it, and they said, we don't really like parents to give it to their kids. We want them to at least pay for half of it because we want them to have some skin in the game. And so, I don't want to make the program sound like you have to be, it can't be like, I can't say, oh, I want my partner to go, you're going to go, because they give you, I don't remember how many pages it was, but it took us each 8 hours to fill out a questionnaire ahead of time. They don't accept everyone. They have to, when they read your questionnaire, they have to see from what they're reading that you are ready and open to change, and you're not blaming someone else, that you're looking to improve yourself, and you realize you are, I don't want to say the problem, but you recognize that you need improvement. And so they don't take you too young. I think the youngest person in my group was 22, and I think the oldest they've ever had is in their 80s. In my group, it was like age 67. And I think they want you to have some skin in the game, right? Because they want to know you're there because you want to be a better version of yourself.
Okay, I'll pay for half then. Just kidding.
We'll send you the other half Venmo, okay?
I'm kidding. Okay, but no, it's interesting because you guys mentioned kind of travel exposing so much, which I couldn't agree more. I mean, it throws a lot of mirrors in front of your face constantly. And then, like you said, going into an uncomfortable situation. I mean, you could translate this to some more conventional lives too, like somebody's living somewhere and they start a new job and it's all new and it's scary. in your version of that, it's, getting on a sailboat and learning how to sail, which is, more intense in different ways. But it's interesting with travel because it exposes so much, but you can also hide behind it in a lot of ways, right? Through the experiences you're doing, and you got so much going on all the time that you can find ways to avoid things. Avoidance is easier, I feel like, on the road in some ways. And
especially if you keep your pace fast, right?
Yeah.
If you're moving fast, you can convince yourself, well, I just got to do this, and we just got to get this train, and we got to get to this country, and we don't have time to deal with this.
Right. And you guys are also with each other all the time, which is, I don't want to say not normal, but I mean, I've been in that situation. I was nomadic for 10 years and I was with somebody for a good period of it. And so I know what it's like to be traveling with your partner all the time. And it's like, you're there, you're working together, you're there, you're still there, you wake up, you're there, you're there. There's no kind of, we go to our separate things and we do this. And it's a lot of togetherness. And that's not something everybody can pull off.
Well, I don't think we can pull it off either.
Well, you're pulling it off.
It's not all bliss.
I thought you were going to say it's the best thing in the world.
I was going to, but I'm afraid he's going to see the truth on my face because he can see me. So I don't know. I don't want to lie.
I can see the truth with my laser eyes. No.
Right.
Well, it's equally challenging on our end because we also post a lot on social media, and like we always known that we try and show the honesty of what this life is like, but there's only so much negative you can show, and so before people be like, "Oh, change the channel." So
this is bringing me down, man.
Yeah.
Right. So we try our best to go ahead and show all sides of it, but we know that there gets a limit to how much you can show of just like how much we're just like, if Jessica and I are having a bad day, we're not going to turn on the camera and say we're fighting. Right. That doesn't,
we don't deny that we fight.
Hold on. Yeah. We're in the middle of this fight. Let's get the camera going. Okay. What were you saying?
And I think
that's a documentary that's coming one day.
Right. Because we do have some footage where I'm like, what? Why'd you say that? And he's like, why are you so cranky? And I'm like, that is not going to make it to the vlog. It's interesting because, I mean, people tend to think, or they say, well, your relationship is perfect and that's why you could spend so much time together. It's not that it's perfect. It's that we know when we need a break. Will runs a lot and I hike, and we take little spaces and breaks from each other and go. And especially as the kids are getting older and launching, we have our own little things that we do on the side. And I think it helps a relationship. Like none of us can sit and pretend that you want to be with your partner 24/7. And Will and I are together pretty 24/7 because we parent together, we travel together, we run a business together. And so I find that I know the same is for him. Like when I'm finding, oh, he's really getting on my nerves lately and he's pushing all my buttons, even just going out for the day or working at a coffee shop for 8 hours, I come back and I'm like, okay, this is the person I love. I was just taking him for granted. There's been a lot of stress going on and there's no break. When you live the way we live, there's no one's going to the office and coming home. No one, it's just constant that you're with the person. And it's very, very easy to take them for granted. For sure. I mean, we're definitely guilty of that. And as the kids launch, we both, like, Will wants to start running marathons again, and I want to do more hiking. And so we're going to make sure that we have those spaces where we have time to pursue outside passions that the other one isn't interested in, and give each other space, because we have been together for a very long time and we've grown a lot, and we still need to be able to grow outside of the relationship and grow individually.
The piece that we haven't talked about too much is the pressure of the business stuff that you're also doing at the same time. You mentioned the word workaholic a couple times. I promise we're going to listen, folks. We're going to talk about some destinations and things too. Don't worry. But we got to get real here with this lifestyle. Having your work with you in the way that you guys have it, and being so accessible with your laptop right there. Just like you mentioned, kind of taking the break in the Hoffman process and realizing, what am I going to do? Like normally you would jump on, you would do this and do that. And that's another form of avoidance, right? We can use travel as avoidance. We can use work as avoidance. And granted, I mean, when you're running a business, certain things need to get done and it just needs to get done. But when you're sharing the space and it's all sort of commingled together, it's hard to have the separation. I'm not a proponent of office life. I'm not saying, no offense to anybody that does. There's a reason why I never worked in an office, because I didn't really want to do that. But there's pitfalls with all of these. You know, you might not like the commute, but you get the separation and from your home, and maybe not so much now as before with the smartphones, of course, and emails constantly. But, you know, anybody can have that issue, but there is something about being on the road and having it right there that, yeah. Can you talk about your relationship with work and how that's evolved over the 10 years traveling, and what are your biggest lessons that you've learned, and some advice really is what I'm looking for.
Yeah. So when we started this, 9 years ago when we started this, I was an accountant, and I was working for a for the company that I used to work for, and it wasn't necessarily we were together 24/7, but we were not working together 24/7.
Yeah.
And in 2017, we came to a crossroads in which the company that I was with, they said everyone needs to come back to the home office or be gone. And we just said, well,
No way.
no way. We're not. We built what we've built, and there's no way that we're going to stop this now, because we just have too much invested into it, and we just love what we have. So that's when we started working 24/7 together, and that also was the advent of when we started living in an RV. So a lot of people, they say when you work from home, the best thing you can do is have a separate room for your work, close the door when you're done, and go back to your normal life. Well, for us, we live out of suitcases at this point, and when half of my suitcase is work equipment, meaning like video gear, and microphones, and laptops, and everything else, everything is commingled 24/7. It's tough. It really is. We have to find the balance, and like Jessica said, finding sometimes a coffee shop to go to is the way to do it. Sometimes to separate ourselves from working 7 days a week, it's a challenge, but we try our best not to let it bite at us, because it can so easily, if for a lot of people that we know traveling, they either have something they built in terms of like a business they've already built, or they have a nest egg that they're using up, or they're kidding themselves, that they can sort of live this life in terms of not working their tails off,
Yeah.
and that it's going to be rainbows and unicorns, like we like to say,
Unless they have family money.
right? So I don't think we have a choice. The benefits are, the highs are highs and the lows are lows, and if you don't commit yourself to going ahead and being able to work harder than anyone else to keep what you have, to sustain this life, it's not gonna pan out. So to answer your question, I guess I feel like it's not easy. We know that our number one are the kids, and so when we're doing this life, there's a lot of sacrifices that we do to go ahead and make sure that they get what they need. We invest in their education. We go ahead and we make sure that we're set up at the right place at the right time to make sure that the kids are not in a place where they are overwhelmed,
And in a space where they can meet their goals and time zones align and all that kind of stuff.
right? And which sometimes then becomes, I'm not going to say a killjoy, but it definitely does sometimes deaden the experience of where we're at, because we'll sometimes be in these incredible places around the world, but we have to sit around and do schoolwork and do work and not enjoy the fact that we're in Istanbul, Turkey, going to the markets and the bazaars, and it's just life. And that's okay, because a month from now, we're going to be some other place enjoying it. And it's not, you enjoy what you have. You can't dwell upon what you don't have. And like going back to the whole mental health thing, that's one of the things that was killing us. We definitely felt like, what are we doing here? We're working we're working like there's no tomorrow, and we know that it's better than the alternative, which is going back to where we used to be. But it still eats at us.
I would say from a business standpoint, and running a business with your partner, no matter who your partner is in the world, it is the hardest thing I have ever done. And I Will's a great partner, and I would say I wouldn't recommend doing it. It's so incredibly hard. And if you have an income stream and you're traveling and everything's really working out well and you love what you're doing, then there's no need to go and start your own business. It's worked out for us because it's allowed us to continue this travel life. But there have been some really dark and really hard days for us. And I think if you talk to anyone who runs their own business, they're going to tell you that. They're going to tell you it's the hardest thing they've ever done. Now, do I regret it? Do I want to stop? Any of the above? No, I'm going to continue on this path. It fulfills us. It meets our goals. And at the end of the day, which I think is really, really important, is we do work we love, that we truly, truly believe in. Our goal with our business and all the different income streams that come with it is to get people seeing more of the world, because we believe travel changes people, whether it's through us coaching them about the logistics of full-time travel because they want to go on a year sabbatical, or coming on a group trip with us, or watching our vlogs, or listening to our podcast. It does change people. And if we wanted an easier life and we wanted to make more money, we should have went back to the US a long time ago, because we'd be making probably 5 times as much and only working 9 to 5 and have a pretty cushy life. But that was not the goal for us. And it's still not the goal for us. But I also don't ever want to pretend that running a business in general or with your partner is easy peasy. It's not. We have a lot of meetings where we just cannot see eye to eye on something, and then other meetings that go really just amazingly smooth. I guess if I was going to give any advice to anyone who's considering doing this, I would say that figure out each one of the partner's strengths, and then divide the tasks, and try not to micromanage or cross over into the other person's area of expertise, but come together on certain things like brainstorming of how you can build the business and that type of stuff. Because once you start, and Will and I think are very good about not stepping into each other's turf, because we know and respect that the other person has a better skill set in that area. But we see that with a lot of people where they're just constantly fighting about who's right and who's not, and you're never going to get anything done. And then the other thing I would say is release whatever you're working on before it's perfect. And this is coming from a perfectionist, and I've really been working hard on that, because you can always improve it along the way. A perfect example for us is our podcast. We wanted to start this 5 years ago. And Will wanted to start it 5 years ago. And I kept saying, no, I'm not ready. I don't know what we're going to talk about. It doesn't feel right. And I was never going to release a podcast. Never. I had all these like 20, 30, I don't know, different show ideas completely developed. And I just couldn't do it. And so after I went to Hoffman, I said, we're just going to release it. It's not perfect. We're going to release it, and we're going to work on it and grow it and improve it as we produce it. And so you got to be able to just release things before they're ready, and then change and adapt as you go. Do you have any advice, Will, for running a business together? Or
I mean, besides having a sense of humor, like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah, that's really important too.
I think there's just like Jessica said, the idea that you learn to let go of your ego when it comes to your partner, because if you do that, you're gonna wind up butting heads like there's no tomorrow. And so you have to just trust in the fact that you don't have to be right all the time, and it's okay to let the other person take over.
Oh, you know what? Another one I just thought of too is that know when you need help. And when I say need help, which is another thing I'm terrible at that I'm working on, is asking for help. Ask people for help if you need help. People want to help. And also know when you need help, in the sense that maybe the business is struggling right now. So through COVID, our business is really struggling. And so Will is a former accountant. And so he picked up some work, some contract positions, and he does that still from time to time as we need it, to keep the business afloat. Otherwise, there's been times where the business would not have survived. So you have to be willing to make sacrifices and actually take on more hours if you want to keep your business rolling during the times that are tough. And believe me, there were times when he was making so much more with his accounting that he could just do that 9 to 5. And I could not work, even though I can't imagine that, because I love to work. And we would have had a nice, easy peasy life, but that's just not how we're made. So, and we believe in our business. So
our therapist used to always say, whenever our therapist. I say it like he's like yours and mine, but he's almost become that.
He's kind of become the family therapist. If anyone feels like they need someone to talk to, they call him.
But whenever we ever had a discussion that we felt like, okay, just can I just bounce this idea off of you? And it would have to be something where I was being stubborn and she was just getting annoyed by me being stubborn.
No.
He would always say, would you rather be happy or right? And I took that almost like the wrong way, because I was like, okay, so in other words, I have to be wrong to go ahead and be happy, or I have to like give in what I believe in to be happy. And it finally dawned upon me, honestly, after I did like this whole Hoffman thing, and it finally dawned upon me saying, I don't have to let my ego win to be right on something that matters zero. And so to dig my heels in for something that is just totally irrelevant, just because I know I'm right, and I know I'm right, but to go dig my heels in and create conflict where it doesn't serve anything. I think has helped us more than anything else, as at least it's helped me, where I just let things go, because even if I felt like I had to dig in, there would be it's a zero sum game. So,
and I don't fight it because I know I'm right.
Yeah.
So God, I hope this isn't. I feel like this isn't that we're going like dark on your audience. Like, you guys, we're trying to present the reality, but maybe we're presenting too much of the reality. But we're still out here, so it is that great, or we wouldn't be out here still.
The dark side of full-time travel. That's what we're going to call this episode. No.
You have all these happy people coming on,
well,
and we're like, don't start a business.
Well, listen, I mean, this is what we're talking about. The reality is what you guys talk about. It's what I love to talk about here. And this is 10 years on the road, raising kids and dealing with, big unexpected hits to a business. And all of this stuff is life. And I think that's a huge overview takeaway, I guess, an overarching takeaway. It might be that just like life doesn't stop happening just because you go traveling. You know, you might be able to run from some things, but they eventually do catch up with you, I suppose. Well, I mean, speaking of lightening it up, let's talk a little bit about the travel modes, because you guys are one of the few that have done various different styles of travel, with sort of the traditional, let's call it backpacking, like trains, buses, flying, whatever, and then getting in the small RV, doing that for 3 years, doing the sailboat thing. How have you guys found the travel experience in each of those modes? What are your big, I don't want to say takeaways, but yeah, like if people are considering different modes of travel in terms of being able to connect with cultures or certain communities, what have you learned from those different modes of travel?
They're all hard.
Well, they're all exciting. That you definitely, there is a rush. There definitely is a high that you go through as you enter each different stage, as we're calling like each different chapter. You know, we did long term in Airbnbs for a year at a time. We did the RV for 3 years, like you said, the boat, and every single time there is a massive rush in the beginning. Then there is a transition into, okay, the novelty is wearing off yet again, but we're still trying to enjoy what we're doing, and we're gonna make this work because there's just too much to be had here. And so like when it came to the RV, you know, the transition was huge, because you know, when you move into 21 square feet or 21 feet, it is, you know, it definitely is.
Yeah, this is a European RV, not an American RV.
No, a European RV.
Right. It was like a big SUV.
Right.
Yeah.
But we walk away now looking at the RV going, it is the best thing that we've ever done. And I think we can say that with certainty at this point. But then we go ahead, we go to Asia and we get, you know, COVID, we get stuck there. And then when we get back to France, we go on the boat. That was again the massive rush that we thought that was going to be like the best thing known to man. And I think that we still do love it. But it just wore on us.
It was hard. I'm just glad that we did the sailboat, you know, all these years into full-time travel, because I think if we had done it initially and still been working and transitioning to a full-time travel life and parenting and homeschooling, I don't know if I would have survived it. I think I might would have wanted to quit
It's
because
not
it was
it's not
really,
something for everybody. Sailing,
yeah,
you know.
it's hard. It's okay. I shouldn't say it's hard because I'm always saying it's not hard. It's not that it's hard. It's that it's incredibly time consuming because if you don't know how to sail, you're learning to sail, right? You've got safety to consider. There's a lot of repairs on boats, and then you're still trying to work in school. So, but then it's been super intense, but also we've grown so much and had such a cool experience. Like an experience like nothing else in our life. And we're on a boat break right now, but we're going to go back to the boat. But it's a level of intensity that I don't think, at least I can't do for 10 years straight. Like I need to have a boat break every now and then to kind of recenter myself because it's just so incredibly intense. But I agree with Will, like the RV, for me, the RV was just the most special. And I think about it a lot, but I think it has to do with, it was just a perfect alignment of everything with the kids being a certain age and just really not wanting much space and wanting to be close to us. And we could all reach our fingers out from their bunk bed and our bed in the sky and touch fingers, which was really, really interesting and lovely. And they just loved being with us. And we saw so much. And it was such a growth period for all of us. And it wasn't terribly expensive. And I think that's something for people to think about when they're thinking about the style of travel that they want to do, that starting out, try to do what is the least expensive. All of the adventures we've done have been magical in one way or another, but the RV was particularly magical. And I think it has a lot to do with the kids' ages, where we were in life. It was a small space and they loved being like close. They were on a bunk bed and we were on a bed that came down from the ceiling. We could all reach out and touch fingers at night before we said goodnight. And there was a lot of giggling and movie nights in this small space. And, like Will said earlier, it was also a massive transition to starting a business and moving into an RV. And at the time, when Will and I talk about this a lot, at the time it felt so overwhelming. And now we look back at it, and that's how kind of life is. We forget the bad, right? And we look back on it as such a magical time because, after that, we went to Asia, which was really great. And then we got on the boat and the kids didn't like having their own cabin the first night. They're like, wait, we can't. And then after that, they were, they're teenagers at this point. They're like, oh, wow. We've never had our own room. This is so nice. And, they started becoming into their own and growing and doing things differently. And it's not that it ruined the family, but that intimate connection you have when they're like just before tween and maybe tween age was just so special for us in the RV. And we had daily adventures because we were RVing all over Europe. And, school wasn't intense. School was just learning out in the world. And it was just a fabulous experience. So every style of travel kind of brings something new. And, as we're on the cusp of another style of travel of hiking for 4 to 6 months, it even 10 years in, I feel like a little nervous and scared and unprepared and kind of Will and I, that's how we go into each adventure. We never feel fully prepared. And there's a lot of like on the job training for us. And so it feels scary. And I've got, butterflies in my stomach. Of course, Will's like, it's going to be fine. But I'm like, oh my gosh, did we do this right? Did we do that right? And we're also going into, a completely new country. And even though we were born in the United States, we haven't lived in the United States for 10 years. Right. So this is a whole other transition for us. Like we know how to do the world. We know how to function in spaces where we're out of our comfort zone and don't recognize the food or the currency or the language. But do we know how to function back in something that we spent 40 years of our life in? I don't know. I mean, it feels a little scary, right? I mean, you're fine, Will, right?
Oh, you're talking to me.
Oh yeah, you're Will. You're fine. I'm having a little bit of nerves about it. Like
I feel like when it comes back to the U.S., it is like a warm, comforting blanket. It's a warm, comforting, dysfunctional blanket, but that's okay. I think that's life in general. But it's gonna be a fun experience because Largo, as much as we go back to the U.S. maybe once every 2 or 3 years, it's not his home. So yeah. I'm more curious through his eyes how he's gonna feel about going back.
And then we talked before, Jason, about, following the kids' goals. And so after we hike the trail, we're actually going to stay in the United States for 6 months so Largo can get his private pilot's license. And that we, like as we said earlier, we support their goals because to be in the United States for a year. 6 months we're fine with, but a year isn't really something we desire, not because we're against the United States, but we spent 40 years doing that adventure, right? So we want to have other adventures, but we are embracing his goals, and that makes him love the adventure even more. And he's looking forward to accomplishing that goal and then coming back out and traveling for another year before he goes to university. So, we're a constant work in progress is what I always say.
It's going to be an incredible experience. I mean, the Appalachian Trail has its own culture and rhythms, and I'm really curious to hear how that goes for you guys. It's a long walk.
You want to come with us? It is a long walk. I would love
to. I've always wanted to do it. It's what made you choose that as opposed to all of the other things you could choose from? Why'd you choose hiking the AT?
It's very interesting because we talked about the PCT, or the Continental Divide, but we just felt that it might be a bit much for our first long haul hike. I mean, we've done a 44-day hike on the Camino Frances, but that was kind of a bit pampered, right? Because we had our food at restaurants and we had beds every night. We weren't kind of full Monty with everything and sleeping in the woods. We entertained a hike in New Zealand and some other ones. And why did we ultimately decide on the AT? Do you remember, Will?
Because we have to be back for Largo's flight lessons anyway.
Yeah.
And so it just made logistical sense to do it in the US. I mean, we actually had our eye also on 88 temples in Japan, which would have been amazing. But
that's way out of our budget, though.
At the end of the day, we have to sort of make decisions based on budget, and so the AT seemed like the perfect fit for us.
And Will has always expressed an interest of doing it, and he's going to be doing it part-time, not full-time like Largo and I, but he's always expressed an interest. And I'm pretty flexible. Like, I love hiking, but I'm kind of willing to hike anywhere. If I'm able to get out and take a nice long walk, I'm not really too picky about where I'm doing it. I would say I'm probably the most nervous, and everyone tells me, and I've done some research and reading, so I'm not as nervous now, but bears kind of scare me. But I've got educated, like with anything, the things that scare me, that I educate myself on it, and then that makes the fear dissipate a bit. But, that's a long time, right? 6 months of doing the same thing is a long time, right? So we'll have to see how it unfolds. The idea is to, accomplish the whole hike, but the purpose of going is not, we have to meet this goal and check that off. The purpose is, a nice long walk, finding ourselves deeper, being in nature, away from tech, all that stuff that everyone should do at some point in their life.
It's going to be incredible. I can't wait to follow along and hear how it goes. And we have to catch up within 5 years, right? We can't wait 5 years for the next one.
Right.
So,
I know, Jason, where will we be in 5 years? So your kids will be, they're 5 and 7.
Will you guys be riding unicycles at that point? I mean, you've done the boat, the RV, the thing.
I don't know what's left. I do have this kind of big, audacious goal about walking the world. And Will has decided that he doesn't want to walk the world. It should take about 7 years, that he's going to run it, which I'm totally fine with, because he's going to run ahead, set up dinner, roll down the bed, put the mint on the pillow, and then I'll roll in at 8:00. And
that sounds perfect.
So if we wait 7 years, Jason, we might be walking the world at that point.
But you can join us on that one too.
Yeah.
Can you share maybe 3, just a few destinations or places that you have come to really love and that you would love to either go back to or spend more time in? Just fishing for some, I guess, destination recommendations. But of course, these places that if you travel around, you get places that for whatever reason, they get near and dear to your heart. And I'm just wondering what those handful of places are for each of you.
My favorite place that I have learned, I mean, I already know what Jessica's going to say, so I'm not going to go there. But my favorite place that we've discovered during our travels, and this is, number one, I would say it was on the boat, and it's Tenerife, Spain, in the Canary Islands. It offers, in my opinion, everything. The climate varies from coast to coast depending on where you are. It has mountain ranges. The people are amazing, and it's true Spanish culture, like there's no tomorrow. Everyone's warm and friendly and huggy. You walk away going, I could stay here forever, because you can be within half an hour and you're in snow-capped mountains, and 45 minutes later you're at the beach. So it is for me, it offers everything there is, and I absolutely adore it. I also like it because like we started Atlantic crossing from there, and it really just holds a special part in our heart. Beyond that, I loved our time in Japan. Our time in Kyoto during COVID was really just remarkable for us. COVID had so many downsides to it, but for us, the upside was that we got to see Japan in its way that it was experienced by very few tourists, because all the tourists went home. And so we got to see the Sakura season without any other tourists around there snapping cameras, and just all the locals walking around and marveling in the glory of what nature's provided. Those for me are, I would say, the top two.
So for me, I would agree with Will on the ones that he said. I have loved India since our first visit. It is the most intense and profound country that I've ever visited, and I feel like everyone should visit India in their lifetime. And it's a hard country to visit from a sensory standpoint. It's really intense. It's poor. There's a lot of poverty. It emotionally takes you on a roller coaster. And I believe going to this country changes a human being, and for all the good ways. And I love the people, and I love the richness of everything there. I love the intensity of it. So India for sure. I'd agree with Will in Japan, so I'm not going to kind of go back on that one. I loved our time in Norway. We didn't have a lot of exposure to people because we were, and I'm not just saying this because of you, Jason. We didn't have a lot of exposure to people there because we were in the RV, and there wasn't a lot that we were doing that was connecting us to the humans or the food, because the food's super expensive there. So we brought all of our food from mainland Europe, but the nature was I just love Scandinavia, and I really loved the nature and the experiences we had as a family in Norway, and it just felt so rich. And there's so many countries to visit in the world that I don't have a lot of desire to revisit countries, although we have with our group trips. We've taken people back to the countries that have really impacted us. But Norway, I would love to do Norway, Sweden, and Scandinavia again in a van. We did it in the RV in a van because it really, I felt very centered there and just really connected to the earth. This is so cliche, but I'm going to say it anyway. Paris is just, people either love it or hate it. And I really love this city. It's been so good to us over the years. It's where our adventure started. It's where we've been now for 4 months, and it's been a warm blanket and a time we've really needed it. People have been very kind and generous to us. And it feels like kind of our European home. So I feel very connected here. And I guess, I could go on. I could go on and on. Our time in Ukraine was so incredibly special. The people were marvelous. Time in Morocco, Ecuador, we lived there for 9 months, and we developed a lot of local friends, and I feel like such a community there. So for me, outside of Norway, because it was the only place we didn't get to connect with the people as much, I find that I'm drawn to a country more when I can connect to the local culture and people there, and hear their stories, and they share the deeper side of their life. And I feel a much deeper connection as a result of that. And it makes me love the place.
Yeah. What a list. Incredible. Well, I am officially Norwegian now.
What's on your list?
There you go. You finally connected with a Norwegian, because I have citizenship. So it's not quite the same though. Right? Doesn't feel the same. Oh, I don't know. We don't need to get into my list now. I'm just reveling in the incredible vibes of your list, I guess. And as you said, Tenerife, which is I'm thinking about a winter escape from Norway to get a little sun. I was like, oh, I haven't been there. Maybe it's time to just book a trip there and check it out based on your recommendation. Maybe I'll even do it after this show. Well, we should. I can't hold you here forever, although I'm loving this conversation. We should mention one more time the Why Matters podcast, which you just launched, where you take the insights of full-time travelers into your everyday life. Then this is the podcast for you. That's you guys sharing your insights. Speaking of insights, I'll ask you to share your biggest insight after almost 10 years on the road. Small question to wrap it up.
Oh boy, that's a tough one. You didn't send that one to us ahead of time, Jason.
I don't send any questions ahead of time.
I know you don't. I said that to Will. I said, did Jason send questions? He goes, no, I just gave him a quick update of our life. I'm like, oh no, we can't go rogue here. Okay, Will, your biggest insight.
The biggest insight, I guess, is that And this is a super cliche answer, but the more we know, the more we don't know. And it is. I remember, like, within 3 years of full-time travel, we thought we had this. We were like, oh, we're like super experienced. Look at us, we know everything. And now I'm just like, what's going to happen next? I have no idea. And that is for me sort of the comforting part, is not knowing what's going to happen next, and which makes it exciting, which
It's
makes us
thrilling.
which keeps us out here, more than anything else, because you just never know what could happen next. It's some things just blow your mind. Some things just like going, oh, how do we deal with this? But that's the glory of travel, is getting through it and understanding that you're better off for it. And I don't know.
I'm gonna quote Will as my thing, because Will always says, if someone else can do it, we can do it too. And if you're listening to this saying, oh, well, look, they did it, but I could never do it, it's not true. We are just really just regular people like anyone else. We had a regular life with the white fence and the dog, and we lived in suburbia. And just one day we said, well, it took us 7 years to say this, but 7 years later we said, enough is enough. We're going to go after this life we want. And Will has always said, if someone else can do it, we can do it too. So are you living the life you want to live? And I'm not saying everyone should go out and travel, but what is it that you want to be doing? Because there will be a day where you will wake up and there won't be any time left, or your body won't do it, or your mind won't do it. And you'll look back with those regrets. So don't look at it like you're too old, or you don't have the money, or you don't this, or you don't that, or someone else is special. That just remember that if someone else can do it, you can do it too.
And it's so hard to imagine, and it's so hard to recognize the fact that what you're saying is that we are now those people. I don't even look at myself as that, but now, like, when I look at full-time travel and I look at people who've done it with families, I think we are now those people that people say, I can't do what they've done.
I know. I think that's hilarious, because we're just so regular people. Right?
And I sometimes just wonder, would I have done it again if I would have started back then? And the answer is yeah. But would I have thought that it would have taken me this far? Absolutely not.
Oh gosh, no way. No way. People have these dreams about what their lives are going to be like. This has blown my mind. Like, this was never part of our equation when we got together in our mid-20s. It was like bigger house, bigger car, more real estate, more this. That was the dream. And this was never part of the equation. Even 5 years ago, looking where we are now, I'm still like, pinch me. Like, this is our life. How did we get here? How did this happen? How are we so lucky that this is not what we imagined every night when we went to bed? And now this is how we live. Like, I feel so fortunate and so grateful. And also, I have a profound recognition for the privilege that we are able to do this, because it is a privilege. We do hold U.S. passports, which give us a lot of freedom to travel the world freely. And we have something that not everyone has. And I never, ever, ever take that for granted. Like, I'm so forever grateful.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much for your time. Of course, we'll link up to everything in your website, WorldTowning, where you can find all of the links in your work and everything like that. Do you guys want to share anything? Is that the best place for people to go and keep in touch? The website? Yeah,
we're WorldTowning on all social media. We're on YouTube, the Why Matters podcast, like Jason said. We're on Instagram. We have a weekly newsletter. We host group trips. We do coaching, all kinds of stuff. You can find it all if you go to our website or any
and
of
we
social
just
media.
announced all of our trips for 2025. We're pausing 2024 because of the AT. And
we have one more trip in 2024, but it's already full.
Right.
And then we have in 2025, we have a 5-day AT hike. And for those of you who haven't done like multi-day in the woods hikes, you get to come with me and do that for 5 days. We have Morocco, European Christmas markets, Vietnam. What else is on there? Camino hike. So all kind, and still adding more. So come join us. Come travel with us. We're not as crazy as we seem on this podcast.
You don't seem crazy at all. Do you still have your official family holiday, your dream day?
We do. We still have dream day, and now we do
close it out, because this is a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. So when we started full-time travel, it was October 6, 2014. And we decided to create our own family holiday around that. So every October 6th, we get together, the family, and we get all kinds of ice cream and all these crazy toppings we can find. And we make the most insane sundaes, pretty much to kind of note how our life is just kind of crazy, chaotic travel whatever extravaganza. And then we sit around as a family and we talk about each person's travel dreams or goals for the next year. And we still do that to this day with Avalon as well. She punches in virtually in her first year. She's in her second year at university, but her first year, we couldn't find ice cream, but we had cookies delivered to her dorm room. And then she shared it with friends. And then they talked about travel stuff, which is really cool. And so we celebrate every year and we call it Dream Day, big dreaming about travel. So anyone feel free to steal it, or create your own holidays. We've created several of our own family holidays as part of our traditions, and it's been really, really fun. So steal them. Go for it.
Yeah, I thought that would be a good way to close it, because off the back of what you said about, asking that question, is this where I want to be right now? Is this where I want things to go? Maybe you can just set aside your own dream day, get a bunch of ice cream and toppings, and talk about where you might want to go next, whatever that means to you. So we'll leave it at that. And thank you guys so very much. And let's do it again sooner than later. Okay?
Thank you so much, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Take care. There you go. Thanks again to Jessica and Will from WorldTowning.com. You can get all the links in the show notes to the various projects, the podcast, their YouTube station, all that stuff. I love when people are able to come on here and just be themselves and talk about the reality of life, and oftentimes life on the road, because this is a travel podcast. But I just want to finish this out with a couple things. We're going to get into this listener voicemail I got in a minute. First, just a reminder, friendly reminder, take care of yourself, right? You heard that. It's a big theme of this conversation. Mental health is important. Self-care is important. I got to say, I've been struggling a little bit lately, not in I'm laying around bed and can't do anything way, but, just feeling a little stuck, feeling a little down, even though the sun's out. And I'm working through it. Hearing conversations like this helps. Getting to chat with you and share with you each week helps me. And I hope this episode has been helpful for you as we close out Mental Health Awareness Month. Stay good out there. All right. Let me share this voicemail with you from Tia, a member of this community, talking about her plans and some of the struggles around that. Here, you'll get some advice around when to take the leap. At least I'll share a few thoughts. Let me play this voicemail for you first.
What's up, Jason and Zero to Travel community? Thank you guys for all your inspiring stories. I've been feeling especially wanderlust lately, listening to all the content, which is part of the reason I'm turning to you guys today. Feeling very torn right now. Just started a full-time job this past fall. 24 years old, working in corporate accounting, but yeah, as I said, very adventurous, love to travel, meeting new people, uniting and connecting people of all different cultures, and just, being in those rooms, kind of like a hostile common room. And so torn with what to do and how long to stay in this job before I kind of make a jump to maybe a vagabonding type thing or remote work, bookkeeping, to travel the world and kind of just become who I am, if you will. I know there's so much out there, but I'm so torn with do I grow roots in a place right now? When do I go?
Thanks, Tia. And she went on to say she has a CPA accreditation and she's interested in travel writing. She might want to get into that. She might want to write a book someday. So a lot of questions. And that's what happens when we're deciding to make a big change in life, right? Whether it's a leap to full-time travel, maybe a new career, something else. We might be weighing a lot of options in a lot of different parts of life. Maybe even changing our lifestyle completely. That's certainly what travel does. So you might be deciding not just if you should travel the world, but, it makes you reprioritize everything. What you want to do with your money. Do you want to buy a house? Do you want to invest? Do you want to date even? Maybe you're single and you want to stay single so you can travel. I mean, a lot of these questions come up. They're going to be very personal to each and every person. So you're going to have your own personal set of questions, and that's what makes it difficult to make the leap, right? It's not rocket science to buy a plane ticket and go. I mean, you can do that. You can just, assuming you have some money, you could open up the computer and do that today. But it's all the other stuff. Figuring out what you're going to do with your life, how you're going to do it, what you're maybe going to do afterwards, and all this stuff. So when do you make the leap? How do you make the leap? She's torn what to do. I get it. I think it's okay. First of all, I'm going to just share 3 quick ideas here. Hopefully they're helpful to somebody listening. But before that, I would just say, first of all, just acknowledge where you're at and you're okay with it. Like, it's normal to feel stuck, to feel torn. You're not weird. There's nothing wrong with you. I think a lot of people are in that mindset. And I'm in that with like businesses and ideas and things I want to do. I'm in that right now. I'm feeling stuck. And so this is like helping me just to talk this out and to remind myself it's okay. Nothing's wrong with me. Nothing's wrong with you. This is a part of the process sometimes. And now that we can all take a deep breath and be like, okay, we're normal. Like, let's just clear our heads and think about this from another perspective. Let's look at this from the big picture. That's the first thing I would say. And I'm a huge proponent of being open-minded when it comes to whatever age you are. I don't usually bring age into these conversations because I feel like everybody has a chance at their travel dreams, their life dreams at any age. But there may be certain things that you want to prioritize based on age. And since Tia mentioned she's in her 20s, she's 24, you might think of that as a decade block, right? Like, what might you want to do by the time you're 30? Again, that's just an arbitrary number. But there are certain things you may want to prioritize. Travel-wise, as an example, you might want to take those more physical type of adventures when you're younger, just because it will be harder to climb Mount Kilimanjaro when you're 45 than when you're 35 or 25. Again, no right or wrong answer, just something to think about. You can kind of think about the decade of the age you're in and perhaps prioritize your life, your bucket list, whatever you want to call it, your travels around what's right for this time in your life. Kind of goes back a little bit to what we talked about in this interview today with the modes of transportation. Will and Jessica talked about how the RV thing was magical for them during that time in their life. And so what's going to be your version of that? What's going to be magical for you when you take the leap? Secondly, just to avoid overwhelm, maybe you want to take an experimental trip. If you're having this idyllic version of what it might be to be a digital nomad, let's say, and live in Mexico amongst the nomads there in the hot spots of digital nomadism, just using that as an example, maybe you want to take like a 10, 14-day trip down there. Maybe you can get your boss's permission to work remotely for a month. Who knows? Is there a way that you could take a smaller version of the bigger thing you want to do and just kind of be in that mindset and be like, what if this was my life? What is it like? Let me try this out. How hard is it to meet people? Just kind of put yourself there and like literally put yourself there. Don't just kind of put yourself there mentally, but maybe take an experimental trip and see how it is. If you've wanted to backpack through Central America, maybe it makes it a little bit harder. Maybe it takes a little bit longer to get your full-time travel leap goal by taking a 10-day trip because you got to spend some money to do it. But might it be smart to just take a short trip and just catch the vibe and get a little vibe of it, I guess, and see how it is. So experimental trip might be a good idea. I just wanted to bring that up as a concept. And even if you don't do an experimental trip, what if you experiment with your mindset and the lens through which you see this? Instead of looking at this as full-time travel, maybe you want to look at this as a gap year. Maybe that's less overwhelming. Again, it's going to be very individual to the person listening. What mindset is going to help you avoid feeling overwhelmed? Because if we feel overwhelmed, we're less likely to kind of push forward because it all seems too big. So is there a mindset you can adopt that makes things less overwhelming? And the last thing is very simple, but very hard to follow through with sometimes. It's just to make a plan. Come up with those scenarios of what you want. In Tia's case, she has this CPA accreditation. That is such a great business to run remotely. I mean, always in demand. CPAs, everybody needs a CPA. You pretty much do it remotely right now. I mean, all the CPAs I've worked with have been remote. Actually, my current CPA now is remote and travels all the time. So you can certainly work remotely. And if that is something you want to do with your current CPA accreditation, Tia, or you listening, insert your skill set, then maybe you decide you want to build a side hustle and build it up to X amount of dollars, and then you'll feel comfortable taking the leap. Whatever the case is, you need to make a plan. Maybe you're going to save up. You want to save up $20,000, and then you feel comfortable going. Whatever the case is, you have to make a plan. And after you have that plan, the hardest part is sticking to your own plan. It can be, because the temptations start to come. Let's say you give yourself a year to save up, and then you get to the end of the year, and all of a sudden you have this amazing job opportunity, or, you know, this chance to make another big chunk of money. You could just put it off for another 6 months, put it off for another year. You see that happen all the time. So make a plan, and things will change. Adapt with your plan, be flexible with your plan, but really try to stick to your plan. That can be the hardest part. And again, this isn't like some magical formula. I'm not sitting here saying that if you do these 3 things, you know, everything's going to work out. I'm just sharing some overarching ideas that might help. You know, cherry pick what you want. If any of that's helpful for you in your life right now, I that's my only intention, and I hope it is. Not trying to tell anybody what to do. That's not what this show's about. It's just about sharing ideas and perspectives, giving you some food for thought to carry away. Speaking of which, I'm going to leave you with a Chinese proverb. But first, I wanted to remind you of that amazing holiday Will and Jessica and their family came up with, right? That idea of creating your own holiday. They had the dream day where they sat down and made giant ice cream sundaes, and they talked about their travel dreams. I mean, isn't that fun? I'm going to encourage you all to make your own holiday. And, you know, whether it involves ice cream or something else, why not? That's just what a great tradition. I'm actually going to talk to my family about that tonight. Let's have a family holiday. What should it be? We're going to craft our own holiday. How much fun will that be? So I'm looking forward to that. And I'll leave you with this Chinese proverb that's been in my wallet for the last couple days as I ponder this for myself. Dig the well before you are thirsty. Dig the well before you are thirsty. Now I just got to figure out what well to dig. All right, thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.